Hey, Mark. What are all the light squares on the board? The light squares? Oh, well, thank you for asking. There's B1, D1, F1, H1. There's A2, C2, E2, G2. There's B3, D3, F3, H3. There's A4 and C4 and E4 and G4 and B5 and D5 and F5 and H5 and A6 and C6. Wait. Yeah. And E6 and G6. Wait. And yes, and B7 and D7 and F7 and H7, and then there's A8 and C8 and E8 and G8. Oh, think you're so hot, eh? Try that backwards. Okay. Let's flip the board in our minds, eh? Black's perspective. Let's think about G8, E8, C8, A8, and in the 7th rank there is H7 and F7 and D7 and B7. Yeah. Oh man, it's the same. And where am I? In the 6th rank, the light squares, there's G6 and E6 and C6 and A6, and then H5 and F5 and D5 and B5 and G4 and E4 and C4 and A4 and holy smokes, and there's A4, and then there's H3 and F3 and D3 and B3, and then there's G2 and E2 and C2 and A2 and H1 and F1 and D1 and B1. Wow, you said that backwards so fast it only took 3 minutes. Whoa. Remember how long 20 minutes that episode was last time? Trying to get just through the beginning? Oh yeah? Well, you think you're so good. What about the dark squares? Should you go there? Oh, we're going there. We learned them all. This is what I did all week, driving around, thinking about how it was so hard to do that last video, just talking about squares. And like, forget about playing a game of chess if you don't even know the map. If you can't see the grid, or at least say the squares at will, you know? This is important stuff. And look at that improvement. Whoa, marked improvement. Get it? It's good. Okay, what are all the dark squares, wise guy? Okay, there's A1, of course. The first. A1, C1, E1, G1, B2, D2, F2, H2, A3, C3, E3, G3, B2, B4, D4, F4, H4, A5, C5, E5, and G5, and B6, and D6, F6, and H6. And then there's A7, and C7, and E7, and G7, and B8, and D8, and F8, and H8. Wow. Oh yeah, but what about backwards for dark squares? Well, you're in luck. That's what maybe the thing I practiced the most was dark squares. This is gonna be great. There's H8 and F8 and D8 and B8 and G7 and E7 and C7 and A7 and H6 and F6, D6, B6, G5 and E5 and C5 and A5 and H4 and F4, D4 and B4 and G3 and E3 and C3 and A3 and H2 and F2 and D2 and B2 and G1 and E1, C1 and A1. Can you believe it? 6 minutes! I said all the squares backwards and forwards. Wow! Wow! If that's not useful, I don't know. Visualization. And I gotta say, I use the imagery in my mind as reference. Obviously, I've learned through saying it repetitiously like that, just going around saying it over and over and over, and now I can just say it almostly. You can see I get caught here and there. I'm either referencing or having to focus on other things, but it's all there, and the more easier it is to say, the more easier it'll be to reference the board in my mind and use this information. Eventually this will be useful. Still not, I'd say, not immediately useful when strategizing a game of chess, but it might help for you to see what's going on, even a small amount. I did it while just going about my day. That's the thing. That's what this podcast is all about. We're learning on the go. That was the deal. Oh man, so you can say them in a row like that, that's something. But what about diagonals? Well, now you're gonna see where I stopped my training, how far I've gotten in 1 week. Because I've only done a couple of diagonals. Well, what's the long square dark diagonal? Everyone knows that. It's famous. H1. Oh, nope. That's the light square diagonal. We'll get to that. The dark square diagonal is H8, G7, F6, E5, D4, C3, B2, and A1. I said it backwards just to flex, I think. I happened to say H first and I went with it. And what about the light square diagonal then? Well, say it with me. If you're watching, you're trying to learn, right? Just follow along. Try to see it in your mind. Well, there's H1 and G2 and F3 and E4 and D5 and C6 and B7 and A8. Is it easier to say it the other way? Let's try it. A8, B7, C6, D4, E5. Oh man. F6, G7. Oh, whoa, I got flipped. Yeah, no. Start over. From the top, because you stopped. That was my favorite thing to say to myself. Isn't that fun? If you stopped halfway through, you just start over. From the top. A8, B7, C6, D5, E4, F3, G2, H1. That's more like it. That's more like it. And then the very last thing I was working on just today was, well, those are the two long diagonals. That's easy. That's cake. What about a challenge, huh? Okay. What about the two dark square second longest diagonals? The seven squares long. There's got to be a better way to say it. The next longest of the dark square diagonals, and there's two of them, obviously. So, well, there's the A7 G1 diagonal, and then there's the B8 H2 diagonal, right? Which one you want to do? Well, let's just Let's just do them both in a circle. Let's just do a circle. Just go from one to the other. Oh, okay. Well, there's where do we want to start? A7? Sure, A7. A7, B6, C5, D4, E3, F2, and G1. And then you just hop over H2. That's a little 2-square diagonal for you, free of charge. What's the G1, H2 diagonal? You learned it just like that. G1, H2. And then from H2, the H2's other diagonal is from H2, you go to G3, F4, E5, D6, C7, and B8. Whoa, B8, and then you know, if you want to complete the circle, you have B8, A7. Wow, there's the other shorty. Man, I don't need to say any more than that. There's today's pre-game lesson. Oh, wow, what an improvement. Yeah, feels good. Now, see, I'll prove to you that working on those is what I've worked on, and I can't just go on and say, hey, what's the diagonal? Okay, what are the light square diagonals? The second longest light square diagonals. I haven't worked on that. But maybe we can just figure it out. But you'll see as my speed gets slower and slower, I can't just say it. I need to think. And that's what we're going to work on. We're going to do, by next week, we're going to have all the diagonals. We're just going to be saying them. We're going to be flying through those diagonals. Man, cool stuff. Cool stuff. Well, okay, so there's the, where do we start? B1? Yeah. There's the B1 H7 diagonal. Yeah. Or there's the, yeah. Or the A2 G8 diagonal. Yeah. So, maybe I won't make you guys suffer through this. Or no, are you happily thinking along with me here? Okay. Yeah, let's stay focused. From A2, B3, C4, D5, E6, F7, G8. Ah, that was easy. Say it backwards then. Wise guy. G8, F7, E6, D5, C4, B3, A2. I said it backwards. Just like that. Just like that. B1 diagonal, you ask? Yes. A2 B1 diagonal is a thing. A little 2-square diagonal. And from B1, there's from B1, there's C2 and D3 and E4, F5, G6, and H7. Wow, that sounds right. They're shorter. They're shorter than the A square. They're one shorter. It's easier. H7, G6, F5, E4, D3, C2, B1. I cannot tell you how strange it is to be able to say it so fast, whereas yesterday, or last week I should say, I got stuck everywhere. Couldn't do any of this. Visualization training and memorization go hand in hand. Hand in hand, my friends. This is stuff you can just think about. You can be brushing your teeth and mulling over, just trying to say these things. And we'll get to nights. We shouldn't have jumped into nights. That was the mistake. Nights are wild. But once we have the diagonals and we know our lefts and rights and our diagonals and all that, ups and downs, then we can throw in these guys that just break all the rules and just go wherever they want. That'll be great. Then we're ready to start visualizing chess openings. We can start discussing all sorts of fun stuff. Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. So far, so good, my friends. Okay, that's it. Wish me luck. Yeah, I'm playing, should be playing 6 more games of Rapid. I'll just let you know how they go, but try to keep these a bit shorter than last time. Yeah, okay. See you on the other side. Okay, so that went well. I won 3 games out of 6. Sounds nice, but one of my wins, the guy just ran out of time, and then the other 2 wins were against a guy that is very new to the game, you know, so I'm not, you know, there's not much to gloat about per se, but you know, whatever. Win's a win, right? 3 of them. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything to say. I'm tired. It's nearly 11 o'clock. I'm tired. Good times though. My gritting out, I don't know if it really helped. You know, there's only very occasionally when I didn't know what else to think about did I remember that I should consider the names of squares and their diagonals and stuff. Well, you know, that building of knowledge is not yet complete. It's still under construction. So, you know, it's fun to try and tap into it here and there when you think of it, but most of the time you're just freaking out and just trying to not miss anything that's going on, you know, the usual. But, you know, we're going to add layers in behind. Yeah, I'd say the board was moderately easier to see. I didn't blunder. Well, no. I blundered all over the place. It's Blunder City. But less panicky, for sure. For some reason, I felt ultimate calm the whole time. So that's good. I'm getting used to playing over the board. So that's good. Good times. Learning stuff. Okay. See you next week.